It was meant to be just another chat between two longtime friends on a podcast, but when Keanu Reeves turned to Sandra Bullock and quietly said he was finally ready to share that story, something subtle but unmistakable shifted in the air. Her laughter faded, her gaze turned inward, and for a moment no one, not even Sandra, knew what was coming. What Keanu was about to reveal would ripple across the world, leaving an indelible mark on everyone who heard it. But before we go on, what's your all-time favorite Keanu Reeves film? Drop your answer in the comments below. The podcast studio is filled with a gentle, expectant energy as two old friends settle in. Warm, understated lighting casts soft shadows across the simple set, where Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock face each other. What was supposed to be a breezy, promotional interview for their new project has taken on a different tone. The red recording light glows, capturing every word for millions of listeners who expect the usual Hollywood anecdotes and career highlights. Keanu sits at ease, dressed in his signature black t-shirt and jeans, his salt and pepper hair falling loosely. Sandra, radiant as ever, fidgets with her water bottle, her usual lively spark replaced by a quiet tension. There's a gravity between them today, a sense that something deeper is about to surface. Their eyes meet now and then, sharing the silent weight of a story never told in public. People always ask about the stunts, the chemistry, the fun on set. Keanu begins, his voice carrying that familiar gravelly warmth. But there are moments in friendship that change you, and they have nothing to do with scripts or cameras. Sandra nods, her eyes softening, as if she knows exactly where this is going. Keanu, she starts, her voice gentle, tinged with both care and worry. Keanu pauses, absently turning a cold coffee cup in his hands. The silence stretches, not awkward but heavy with memories. Sandra watches him, patient, as she's done so many times before. "Sandra, you saved my life once," Keanu says suddenly, his words slicing through the quiet like a gentle knife. "And I don't think I ever truly thanked you." Sandra's eyes widen, her composure slipping into genuine surprise. "Keanu, what are you doing?" she asks, her voice soft, not angry, just concerned, affectionate. "Something I should have done a long time ago," Keanu replies, his tone reverent, transforming the casual studio into a sacred space. "I'm telling the world about the most selfless act of friendship I've ever known." The studio seems to shrink, the walls leaning in to listen. Sandra shifts, clearly uneasy with the spotlight, but Keanu's resolve is clear. This moment matters. "This isn't a Hollywood story," Keanu continues, hands still around his cup. "It's not about premieres or awards or the glamorous side of this business. It's about a time when someone showed up for another person in a way that..." He looks at Sandra, gratitude and emotion in his eyes. "In a way that restored my faith in people." The words hang between them, heavy with unspoken history. Sandra's eyes glisten as she realizes which story Keanu is about to share. A story she likely hoped would remain private. "We were filming Speed." Keanu starts, then stops. "No, it wasn't during filming. It was years later, after we'd both moved on to other things. I was going through..." He hesitates, vulnerability etched on his face, glancing at Sandra for permission. She nods, barely, her own vulnerability showing. "I was going through the darkest time of my life," Keanu continues, his voice softer now. The admission fills the small studio with a sacred hush. Keanu Reeves, the icon of resilience, is about to reveal a moment of profound pain. Sandra reaches across the space, gently touching his hand, a gesture that speaks to decades of friendship. "Most people know about some of the losses I've faced," Keanu says, his voice barely above a whisper. "My daughter, River, my father leaving. But what they don't know is how close I came to..." He stops, the words hard to form. "How close I came to giving up completely." Sandra squeezes his hand, her own eyes wet. She knows this story intimately, but hearing it aloud is different. And that's when Sandra... Keanu begins, then pauses, gathering himself. But as he takes a breath, it's clear that what he's about to say will challenge everything people think they know about celebrity, friendship, and the power of simply being there. The podcast continues, but the mood has shifted. This is no longer just an interview. It was 2001, Keanu says, his voice steady but heavy. I just finished The Matrix. Everyone saw success, opportunity, a bright future. But inside, he looks down at his hands. Sandra leans in, protective. Inside, I was drowning. Losing Ava, my daughter with Jennifer, broke something in me that nothing, no money, no fame, could fix. I was a ghost, going through the motions. His honesty creates a sacred space. This isn't the sanitized version of celebrity struggle. It's something raw and real. I remember sitting in my house one night, Keanu says, voice dropping. It was a Tuesday in March, 2 a.m. I hadn't slept in weeks, hadn't eaten in days. I was empty. Sandra's grip tightens, her face showing she knows exactly which night he means. I'd made a decision, Keanu continues, his words slow and deliberate. The pain of living felt heavier than the unknown of not living. I know it sounds dramatic, but when grief is your only companion. He trails off, the weight of it settling over them. Sandra wipes away a tear, struggling to keep her composure. I'd written letters, Keanu says, to my mother, my sister, the few people who mattered. I'd made arrangements. I thought I was being responsible. That should have been a warning sign. When ending your life feels like just another thing to check off, the silence is profound. And then my phone rang, Keanu says, his tone shifting. At 2:17 a.m., Sandra called. Sandra's eyes widen, surprised he remembers the exact time. Her face a mix of love, sadness, and embarrassment. You have to understand, Keanu says, looking at Sandra with deep gratitude. We weren't in close contact then. Speed was years behind us. We'd see each other at events, exchange pleasantries. But we weren't calling each other at 2 a.m. Keanu, Sandra says, clearly uncomfortable. No, let me tell this. Keanu insists gently. People need to know what real kindness looks like, what intuition and care can do. He turns to the audience, his voice gaining strength. She called and the first thing she said was, I had a dream about you and I'm worried. Are you okay? Keanu's voice cracks. Not sorry to wake you. Not this might sound weird. Just concern. Sandra's composure breaks, tears streaming down her face. She seems torn between stopping Keanu and needing to hear this. I almost hung up, Keanu admits. Her timing was so perfect, it felt like the universe was playing a trick. I was minutes away from making an irreversible choice. And suddenly Sandra Bullock is on the phone, asking if I'm okay. The weight of near tragedy and fate settles over the studio. Instead of hanging up, I started crying, broke down. And Sandra, without knowing what I was going through, just stayed on the line and listened. As Keanu prepares to share what happened during that call, the studio feels charged. Everyone knows they're about to hear something extraordinary about intuition, friendship, and the power of presence. But what Sandra did next was even more remarkable than her call. What she did next didn't just save my life. It changed my understanding of compassion forever. I don't remember everything I said. Keanu continues, his voice trembling. I was in a dark place, rambling about loss and pain, feeling like I didn't belong. Most people would have tried to talk me out of it, offered platitudes, suggested therapy. Sandra shifts, reliving the call. Her tears have stopped, but her eyes are red, filled with the memory of fear. But Sandra didn't do any of that. Keanu says, looking at her with awe. She just listened. For over an hour she listened. And when I finally went quiet, she said something that changed everything. Pause is heavy. Sandra seems to know what's coming, her face showing she had no idea how much her words would mean. She said, Keanu, I'm coming over. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything. Just wait for me. His voice breaks. It was 3:30 a.m. by then. Sandra lived across town. She had an early call the next day. She had every reason to just stay on the phone or suggest meeting later. Sandra finally speaks, her voice soft. I've never told anyone this, but when I hung up, I was terrified. I'd never heard Keanu sound like that. There was something in his voice. If I didn't get to him right then, I might never see him again. This wasn't just concern. This was life or death, recognized and acted on by someone who trusted her instincts enough to drop everything. She didn't just come over, Keanu says, wonder in his voice. She stopped at an all-night grocery store, bought ingredients for chocolate chip cookies. Real ones, not pre-made dough. She bought coffee beans, breakfast stuff. Every detail mattered. Sandra smiles through her tears, remembering. I showed up at his house at 4:45 a.m. with groceries and no plan except not leaving him alone. She rang the bell, Keanu continues. When I opened the door, she just... He pauses, the memory vivid. Just what? Sandra prompts. Just hugged me. Didn't comment on how I looked. Didn't ask questions. Didn't try to fix anything. Just held me until I stopped shaking. Keanu's voice is a whisper. The memory's sacred. Then she walked into my kitchen and started baking cookies at 5 a.m. The image is both absurd and beautiful. Sandra Bullock, Hollywood star, baking cookies at dawn as an act of love. For the next 6 hours, Keanu says, Sandra took over. She made coffee, baked cookies, cooked breakfast, put on gentle music, cleaned dishes, opened windows. She brought life back into my house. Sandra laughs softly, wiping away new tears. I turn into my mother when I don't know what to do. I cook when I'm scared or worried. I feed people. But it wasn't just the cooking, Keanu says, urgent. She transformed my house from a place where I was planning to die into a place that felt alive again. The smell of cookies, the sound of life, the act of sharing a meal. She showed me I still belonged. As Keanu prepares to share what happened next, it's clear Sandra's rescue was just the start of something even more profound. What she did in the weeks that followed proved that real friendship isn't about showing up once. It's about choosing over and over to see someone when they can't see themselves. That morning, Keanu continues, Sandra didn't try to fix me. She didn't offer advice or say it would be okay. She just existed with me in the darkness and made it less dark. Sandra nods, her own memories vivid. I remember thinking that grief looks different for everyone, but isolation makes it worse. I couldn't take away your pain, but I could make sure you weren't alone in it. After that night, Keanu says, I thought things would go back to normal. Sandra would go back to her life, I'd go back to mine, maybe exchange awkward thank yous. But Sandra had other plans. I started what I called the Tuesday Project. Sandra admits, blushing. Every Tuesday for 6 months, I'd show up at Keanu's house. Sometimes with groceries, sometimes with movies, sometimes just to sit in his garden and not talk. She never called ahead, Keanu adds, smiling. Just showed up every Tuesday like it was normal. Sometimes I wouldn't answer, and she'd just sit on my porch for hours, reading or working, letting me know someone cared. The image of Sandra Bullock camping on a porch as an act of love is striking. This wasn't about networking or career. It was about pure human connection. There were Tuesdays I was angry, Keanu admits. I'd tell her to leave, that I didn't need help, that I wanted to be alone. Sandra interjects. But only after I made sure there was food in the fridge and something growing in the garden. I'd plant flowers or herbs, something that needed tending, something to give him a reason to get up. Her approach was quietly brilliant, creating gentle reasons for life without demanding it. The turning point, Keanu says, came on a Tuesday in August. I was having a hard week, missing Ava, feeling like the grief would never end. Sandra showed up with paint. House paint. Sandra grins. Bright, ridiculous colors, yellow, blue, green. I told him we were painting his living room, like it or not. I thought she was crazy, Keanu laughs. But arguing took more energy than painting, so we painted. Sandra continues. Badly. We got more paint on ourselves than the walls. We played music too loud, made a mess, and for 4 hours, Keanu forgot to be sad. The breakthrough wasn't therapy or deep talk. It was the simple act of creating something together, transforming a space and making a mess. When we finished, Keanu says, sitting on the floor covered in paint, I realized I'd laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. I looked at Sandra and asked, "Why are you doing this? Why are you here every Tuesday dealing with my mess?" The question lingers, and it's clear Sandra's answer changed everything. She looked at me, Keanu says, voice low, and said, "When someone you care about is drowning, you don't ask why they fell in. You just jump in and help them swim." The words land with the weight of truth. Sandra closes her eyes, overwhelmed. But then she said something else. Keanu continues, "That changed how I saw myself and my place in the world." Sandra opens her eyes, tears brimming. She knows what's coming. She said, "Keanu, the world needs you, not for what you do or achieve, but because you're you. Because you notice things, because you're kind, because you make the world gentler just by being in it." Sandra breaks down, hearing her own words reflected back with the weight they've carried for decades. "I'd never," Keanu says, voice thick, "had anyone explain my worth in terms that had nothing to do with achievement. Sandra saw value in me that was just there, unchangeable. The studio feels sacred, the moment extraordinary." She continued, Keanu says, wiping his eyes, "If you can't see that right now, if the pain is too loud, I'll be your eyes and ears until you can. That's what Tuesday is for." Sandra takes both his hands. "I meant every word," she says. "I still do." That conversation, Keanu says, was the moment I decided to stay. Not just to not die, but to actually live. Sandra didn't just save his life that night. She taught him that salvation is a daily choice, sometimes held by someone else until you can hold it yourself. The Tuesday project lasted 6 months, Sandra says, but really it never ended. We just started calling it friendship. The evolution from intervention to deep connection is beautiful. Everyone deserves someone who'll show up on Tuesday, Keanu says, addressing the audience. Someone who'll sit with them in the dark and help them remember the light. As they sit in the aftermath, it's clear the story has changed them as much as it will their listeners. The honesty, the vulnerability, the demonstration of love in action, it all hangs in the air, a challenge to everyone listening. But there's more. What happened after the Tuesday project would transform not just Keanu's life, but his entire way of being. The most important thing Sandra taught me, Keanu says, is that once you know what it means to show up for someone, you can't unlearn it. You can't go back to ignoring suffering. Sandra smiles, proud of the man he's become. A year after the Tuesday project, Keanu continues, I was at a coffee shop in Vancouver. I noticed a young actor, maybe 22, sitting alone, staring at his phone. There was something about his posture. Sandra nods. You recognized the signs. I did, Keanu says. That stillness, that trying to disappear. So I walked over and said, I'm getting another coffee. Can I get you one? No introduction, just a simple offer. What did he say? Sandra asks, curious. He looked up, eyes empty, and said, I don't really drink coffee. So I said, neither do I, but sometimes you need an excuse to sit with someone. They ended up talking for 3 hours. His name was David. He just lost his agent, missed out on a role, was questioning if he belonged. Sound familiar? Sandra laughs, recognizing the echo. I didn't give advice, Keanu says. I just listened the way Sandra listened to me. When he left, I gave him my number. If you need someone to just exist with you, call me. David called 2 weeks later, not in crisis, but to thank Keanu for seeing him. That's beautiful, Sandra says, pride in her voice. But here's the thing, Keanu continues. David is now a successful actor, but more importantly, he pays attention to others' pain. Last year, he started a support group for young actors. He calls it Tuesday Talks. Sandra's eyes widen. He named it after what you taught me. Keanu confirms. Showing up consistently because someone matters. That's how you change the world. One Tuesday, one conversation at a time. The ripple effect is clear. One act of kindness multiplying across years and lives. Since then, Keanu says, I've had my own Tuesday project with dozens of people. Not always actors, not always in crisis. Sometimes it's a homeless vet, A neighbor, a bullied kid. I just show up. Sandra shakes her head. You've been doing this for 20 years and never told me. I didn't want you to feel responsible.